Hello. Well, welcome to this Twitter space. Big day in the modular world. Lots of there are I think some very exciting announcements going out. So I'm really delighted to host the some of the some of the finest builders and founders in the modular and Ethereum ecosystem. So Anurag, co-founder of Avail, welcome. Misha, co-founder of Symbiotic. Misha, welcome. And then the famous OG, Kostya of Lido, Cyberfund and P2P. There's just a very long list of accomplishments there. So I've known Anurag and Kostya for a while, for a few years. So it's an honor, always an honor and a privilege to be with some illustrious founders and builders like you guys. Misha, it's great to host you as well. So you've been building some really cool stuff with Symbiotic. So our audience today is builders, but also lots of people who are new to this entire modular ecosystem. So we'll love to talk about the partnership that you guys just announced today, and what that means for the Ethereum community and for builders in Web3, right? So welcome. Great. So, question. Let me get started. Anurag, a question for you. So, what's this? What's the big announcement? What's going on?
Yeah, like incredibly excited to announce this collaboration with Symbiotic. In general, we've been talking for some time now. In general, working on the shared way in which we can work together. Primarily, Avail is kind of building the infrastructure that is required for the rollup centric roadmap, and we had this component called Fusion that allows users to stake any sort of restake token or like ETH or any other ERC20 token into increasing the security of the Avail base layer. So that's one of the first points that we are going to be working with Symbiotic. But in general, like the Avail builder also gets access to Symbiotic suite of verifiable service related network building services, and so it's a powerful addition to the Avail toolkit. And in general, like this is just the start, right? We're going to be working very closely with the Symbiotic team to do much more, essentially to power the a new category of innovative applications that can be built
Amazing.
out there.
So I'm going to read from the Twitter announcement. It says Avail into Symbiotic Pi, a unified framework for seamless innovation that introduces multi-asset restaking, powerful use cases for builders, and a vibrant ecosystem of verifiable services to empower users. So, Misha and Kostya, what are we talking about here with verifiable services? What sort of
Yeah.
services
Well,
and what Symbiotic? What are you guys building?
yeah. Well, we're building shared security protocol. In a simple terms, our goal is to make a decentralized network like perform in terms of development closer to Web 2. So we can start decentralized. You can start safe. You can start to be able to test the traction, and for you to start testing hypotheses and your product market fit, not from the place of centralization, not from the place of being dependable to anyone, but on a safe, permissionless, and UX oriented protocol.
Right.
What that means is that like you can use multiple services, as like currently that the ones that we announce in partnership with. You can use DA, so you don't have to store information. You have like a really safe storage space for you to use as a trust root for every thing that you build your ecosystem on. Or you can use Oracle network or Interchain network, Interop network, or other elements of the modular design that we are trying to like currently developing in a very safe and very expedient manner.
Right. So what you're saying, I believe, is that it used to take developers a lot of work to essentially launch their own blockchain potentially, and then build a bunch of things on top of that to launch the applications, which finally would deliver value to the user. So it takes about a year or 2 years to, like in the Cosmos ecosystem, to bootstrap validators and then build the whole app chain and whatnot. And now with Symbiotic, you have this way of bootstrapping, protocols and applications or app chains, where you sort of say, look, we're going to use the shared security with Ethereum. There is, like $300 billion of value there. Restake value can be, how much is it on Restake is available on Symbiotic right now? A billion plus, right?
1.7, around that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So now that's the economic value that you can restake to secure, to provide economic security, which I think you can explain to protocols, and that really is streamlined, because now you don't have to do all of that work. You can just focus on building the application value, the value that is actually what you're trying to deliver as a builder. So and Anurag, you've been building Avail, which is this cutting edge data availability layer, DA layer. So how does the DA layer combine with a shared security protocol like Symbiotic?
So yeah, I mean, see, of course, Avail started with building out this very innovative, data availability feature set, but that's not the only goal of Avail, right? The goal of Avail really is to provide all the infrastructure that is required to run these rollups on top. Like we are firm believers in the sense that the blockchain scaling cannot be done on one chain alone. It will require lots of chains talking to each other seamlessly, and so that's why we've been like harping on the unification theme in general. Is that what we really provide is infrastructure for scaling, for first class interoperability between rollups. So blockchains using the rollup landscape should not feel like using 100 different chains, right? It should look seem to look as one. And so Avail really was started with the insight that you really require infrastructure at the low level to kind of build this new world on top. And in general, there are a lot of components that are required to make this happen. Ultimately, for the end app developer and the user to experience this, right? Like so, certainly we are building some of the infrastructure at Avail, which includes, of course, data availability, but also interoperability. But it also requires like a strong shared security layer. It also requires various other aspects, things like like decentralized sequences, right? Like how do you kind of make a sequencer decentralized? You'll have to either create your own security or use Symbiotic, for example. How do we populate the Avail universe with services like Oracle, new Oracles, for example? Right? Like I mean, not only price Oracles, but Oracles of any kind, for example. How do we kind of build fast interop features, for example? How do we build various sorts of policy engines, for example, right? Like intent frameworks, you name it, right? Like, I mean, essentially, an ecosystem is not created by one team, it's created by, you require a village to build this, right? Like to raise a baby in that sense, right? Like, so,
Yeah, there's a tweet from Andre yesterday, right, which was quite spicy and controversial, saying that it's really okay. L2s are not really practical for builders, because you have to kind of do a lot of work on integrations with oracles, integrations with indexers, this and that, and a bunch of infrastructure services that are required every time you launch an L2. So I think this is really exciting, because I think what you're saying is right. My understanding, please correct me here, is that now if you have something like Symbiotic, and and that allows services to, like oracles and whatnot, to bootstrap very quickly, then just like in the Web2 world, we assume that AWS will have a lot of these services, or a bunch of application services are being shipped by SaaS providers. Then you can essentially integrate all of them very efficiently and focus on delivering value to the end customer. So that's a fascinating viewpoint, and I think we will take on Andre the side and kind of explain to him. So Kostya, bringing you into this, right? So you're a true OG. You've been around, I think, as long as staking has been around, and you've done a lot of work with P2P across Ethereum, Cosmos, Polkadot. Just about any successful POS protocol has kind of your fingerprints on it. So tell me from your vantage. Tell us from your sort of this vantage point as to where you see Avail and Symbiotic combining, and how can sort of builders take advantage of that.
Yeah, first of all, happy to join you, on this podcast, and in general, yeah, it's great to meet you always, and I mean, how to say, it's great to be not only see you on podcast, but also share, long time relationships. And I think that, I joined crypto in 2014, so it was already some examples of proof of stake. So I'm not so old as proof of stake, but almost in crypto. And when we met Anurag, he told me about his vision and in general as a product Fusion, that he want to have all the tokens, that provide more security, for example, and not only Ethereum, but also Bitcoin and some other. And then, when we came with ideas that let's make restaking as a more like an infrastructure layer, just as trustless as ERC20, and Misha start to build Symbiotic, I figure out that it's great that when such two products collaborate together and, in one network in Ethereum, and use the best of each other to create more modular, market to launch new products much faster. And that is a good example why Ethereum is a big thing, why all this Twitter fat is a fat, I think that what Ethereum is doing right now and Avail and Symbiotic is a good example for it, the best founders building in Ethereum. And also, now almost 95% of infrastructure problems. It is a lot of them still, but in case of UX, they almost solved. And that's why I'm really wait of this big growth, and people will not care more about infrastructure. They will just launch own servers or L2s or some other type of products. And bring more adoption to crypto. That's the main goal. And I'm super excited at such collaboration because they show how in permissionless world piece of code can collaborate with another piece of code, and be trustless eventually. That's what's important.
Absolutely. So that's a fantastic perspective. Because a lot of these experiments, I've been around 10 years in this industry, and I've seen a lot of different architectures. And I've been involved more as an observer. You've been very deep hands-on. So I think we kind of Ethereum is now with Avail, Symbiotic, various other offerings. Ethereum, the roll-up centric roadmap for Ethereum is kind of combining and synthesizing a lot of those ideas. But there are still some gaps in Ethereum, right? So on one hand, I think Ethereum has now started to solve shared security, which is what Cosmos, Polkadot, and others wanted to solve, but never really got around to. But data availability came out of research from Ethereum, right? And a lot of the ZK work that's gone into Avail has come out of the research that has happened in the Ethereum ecosystem. So the synthesis of all of these, things is something I tend to struggle to put my head around, which is, where is all this going? And as you said, the Twitter FUD, right? So it's also hard for guys on Twitter to kind of see where all of this is going, because it's very easy to trade meme coins, but it's not really easy to think 4 or 5 years ahead and say, okay, what sort of apps are we going to build? So the question, because that's the meta, Anurag, for you, is what sort of applications are builders going to be able to build with this powerful, partnership that Symbiotic and Avail are bringing to the builders?
Yeah, in general, see, the world runs on ledgers, really. Right? If you kind of look all around, everything is run on some sort of ledger. Now these ledgers, before like we went into building a lot of this trustless or trust minimized technology, all of this still works on trusted relationships, trusted contracts, trusted bilateral APIs, for example, and so on, right? Like so, and of course that took a lot of iterations to get where it is right now. Like today, as you kind of mentioned before, when an app developer wants to develop an app, there's a lot of SaaS services or APIs and stuff like that already available, and they just need to build on the specific app logic or business logic that they want to build. They don't have to recreate the infra from scratch. So I think what we are really aiming for is, can we kind of get to that sort of abstraction, infra abstraction, that allows the app developers to cook really, essentially,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So, I mean, it's sometimes, I find it like a little bit surprising that a lot of people hold the steadfast view that all the apps in the world can live on, like one blockchain, similar to how our apps on the internet do not live on one big supercomputer, right? Like they live on different servers, scaled independently based on demand. And there is no way that I can see a world where there's just one blockchain hosting all the world's apps. So it's going to be on these multiple servers, as rollups are basically verifiable servers. And like to populate this landscape, as kind of again going back to your analogy about all these SaaS services, for example. So it's a mixture of these verifiable servers plus some verifiable services in general. And so that's really where we are trying to go with this.
Amazing. So let's talk more about verifiability, right? So Misha and Anurag. So what sort of verifiability does I mean, Web2 just works, right? So I mean, we use a bunch of apps today. Most of what we use is Web2. So where does verifiability come into this picture? What does that mean? And how does Symbiotic help with verifiability? And what's Avail's role in that, the verifiable Web3 stack from a user and builder perspective? Sorry, Misha, you're on. I think you're on mute. Let me see if I can unmute.
Yeah, builders are like we can just straight up copy the how Web 2 solve things, and we'll have L2s that are going to be on one server and won't use data availability at all, neither from Ethereum or from Avail or from other sources. But it's not actually like native to us. We have like our industry has always was proud about the pride assumptions that we take, the truth assumptions that we had, the trust assumptions that we have. And yeah, like for us to get the UX from like the good part from Web 2, so UX part, when you have like parts that you can reuse, parts that are tailored or flexible enough to cater to a lot of cases, but still keep this like the ideals that we have, and like tries minimized environments that we have. Like I think we're like Symbiotic, both and Avail are working to that extent. In terms of Symbiotic, we create a simple relationship within the network in search of decentralization and launch operators that are going to actually be doing the like server work and like operation, and the stake that provides economic security. Our job at Symbiotic, if we strip it out down to the core, is to make sure that once everyone agrees on the mode of operation, like we'll enforce like that the wrongdoers should be punished, and the do-gooders will be rewarded in a manner that's predictable. So yeah, in terms of like the actual value, any network that is decentralized, that's what we call them networks. Like any network that is in search of decentralization, or like being decentralized or decentralized but not enough, can benefit from the services that we provide.
That's really cool. Anurag, how does the Avail stack add verifiability, and what's in it for the builders and the users?
Yeah, so I mean, in general, like, of course, we talk a lot about verifiability in the crypto space, crypto Twitter, for example. But I was just having this conversation with a few fintech folks who, like I was trying to explain the benefit of using this, right? Like, so the essentially, like, composability really is one big superpower of this whole ecosystem, like, and which includes verifiability. Uh, in this case, right? Like, I mean, how the real world really works is essentially, like two parties want to communicate with each other, and they kind of do enter into this contract. They have some, like a lot of trust assumptions, and then they communicate. And so that's why, if you look out into the world, there is a lot of assets, not only financial but other assets, like locked in silos in general. And so, how do you kind of make these assets composable, whether digital, physical, for example, right? Like, so in general, like, you want to kind of reach a position like where, let's say, traditional systems work on a trusted relationship. Blockchain technology comes from the goes to the other end of the spectrum, that even in a environment where there is no trust required, how can we communicate, right? Like, I mean, essentially. And so that really is pretty key in ensuring, like, that we kind of solve for pretty useful use cases.
Yeah.
Verifiability, like, if you kind of look at this is all ledger tech. Ledger tech has two things. One is, like, is the transaction order uh, mutable? Is the execution valid, right? Like, there are just two things you really need to solve. And both of these, like, we kind of provide in the Avail toolkit.
Fascinating. So, Kostya, I know you have to leave earlier than the rest of us. So, please come in. I have a question for you. So, you built a lot of different things. You built P2P, you built Lido, and so that's where kind of the liquid staking story really took off. I mean, Cosmos invented it, but Ethereum really brought it to scale. Now, and going from there to restaking, right? So I have a wonderful friend called Tarun Chitra, and he said something very interesting. He said that restaking has the potential to return the monetary premium. I mean, he speaks in words I don't always understand. Back to Ethereum holders, right, or ETH validators. So what does that mean? I mean, how does this type of architecture and create value for ETH holders like me?
I mean, it is a different way how it can be achieved. Like one of the way, if you will use your asset as our ETH or stake this, like and restake it in different other piece of infrastructure, then you can get more rewards from it. But I mean, what you need to understand, it's no free money, and everything should be efficient, and that's why, first of all, I mean, networks or network creators like Ethereum, even they don't want to pay a lot to validators. It is even like minimal viable issuance or project from Ethereum Foundation. But for me, first of all, minimal viable issuance for validators is a wrong approach. Why? Because I mean, it's like you came to the company and say, we'll pay you the minimal viable salary. How many people you will keep in your company, and the same is for validation. You want to be your network secure, and you want to participate solo validators. So maybe that is a really wrong approach. But for restaking, I mean, people want to get, I mean, people who build networks, they want to tune, how it will work. Initially, they can more use Ethereum validators, or they maybe want to have the cheapest stake, or maybe they want to use their own token, to restake. And it is a lot of options. Maybe even one day Ethereum will provide some native restaking. But what we need to understand that these protocols want to be capital efficient. They will pay money and fees for it. And if it is a fees, that's inevitable. It is a risk, and to manage this risk, somebody need to manage this risk, and should be or users themselves, or it should be maybe even regulated entity some way if it is a risk, so it should be some way of work with this risk. But inevitable, like even if you will not provide your own ETH to restake, but it will generate more fees on L1. It's then like it will also will generate you more. I mean, in general, more rewards for you too.
Got it. Yes, I love more rewards and more fees. So who doesn't? So now I'm starting to understand. I think what we mean by verifiability. I guess what we're saying is Web 2. We trust in Facebook or we trust in Google, and some now even in like some certain types of L2s we trust in one guy sequencer. But obviously that's not where we want to be. That's Vitalik has been speaking quite actively about sort of stage 1 rollups as the minimum criterion for recognizing something as an Ethereum aligned L2, maybe some variation of that. So there is a lot of, I think, emphasis in the Ethereum community on the core values, which is decentralization, but also trust minimization, right? Which is kind of, we only trust if you have you're putting some money behind it, as in either you have cryptographic proof, or when that's not possible or not efficient, then you have crypto economic security, which is okay, you stake some money and you have something to lose if you're lying, right? That's kind of the credible commitments idea. So that's fascinating, and I think that's a much better architecture for the internet. And we have already seen that. So that's kind of how we started with Bitcoin and so
Yeah,
on.
one second to add, like that's what we are talking about in all this podcast, but 90% of the projects, they are not like that. That's
Yeah.
of the market, it's multi-sigs, and it's no any like credible commitment, security, and so on. This is a big conquer of like crypto, and I think it's also like some regulators can attack a lot of projects. Why? Because they are positioning as a decentralized, but they're all like distributed. But I mean, if it's run by multisig, it is a risk. And I think that we also need to challenge our friends who in general running these protocols to be sure that they are, if they are talking about like decentralization, if they are talking about trustless and won't provide infrastructure, they should put like to do like what they say, and that is super important.
Right, and I think so. One thing that's fascinating about this is this idea of restaking or staking any token, right? Not just Ethereum, but just about any token. So what's there? As in, what's the big idea? Why? And there's a lot of debate. I mean, I spend too much time on Twitter. So is that a good idea or a bad idea? So why have this type of shared security model where you can stake or restake any token, and not just let's say something very high quality like Ethereum?
Yeah, maybe I will start, Misha, and then I will leave, and then you can continue about that. I think like it was October or November last year. We were in Tokyo East conference. Like it was LiDAR conference, and we have a talk with Justin Drake on a panel, and I told him that somebody need to build a tool, like there where you can restake any assets with like and where you can restake any assets in trustless way, just like ERC20 protocol. Nobody care about that. It's no token for it, like it's just works as a smart contracts. Or I mean, why? Because first of all, it is a lot of builders, application builders. Some people want to build restaked, or I don't know, roll up for Arbitrum, or like it is other people who want to use some other type of security, or maybe some people want to optimize the price. Well, if for example this token has some amount of liquidity, like trading volume, then it's enough to use in the protocol, like for security. And if they can, for example, buy this security cheaper, that's already like good. Or maybe some people want to restake some tokens that already get yield an hour, and manage in a way this risk, and I mean optimize it long term. Because for example, we in Cyber Fund, we believe in cybernetic economy, and cybernetic economy should be efficient. And that's why like I mean, it's no blockers to be it's only for Ethereum all liquidity can be restaked, and you just need to be tooling. And that's when Misha came to me in January, or I don't remember when, almost in New Year, like, and said, we want to build it, like, oh, and I told him that's a super great idea, like, and yeah, and Misha can tell more. I need to leave, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining.
To talk with you, and
we should come out to Cyprus and probably see you there.
Yeah,
lovely. So Misha, over to you. So please carry on. So so there is this wonderful shared security layer, and now
I can add some color to what Konstantin just said. We have protocols and networks, protocols that are coming to us from different ecosystems. A lot of people are thinking about restaking as something like that's like being done. I use the same if to restake to multiple networks on the same level that are not connected to each other in any way. But we actually see like the emergence of ecosystems that are restaked between each other. And for this purpose, they need alignment. They don't only require the most efficient the most efficient token. They want to align themselves and to get synergy in this regard as well.
Shared security part of the shared security, right? Like Cosmos guys used to do this interchain security where you could, or mesh security. They had a bunch of experiments with Ethereum. That kind of works, right? Because now you have a base layer with a lot of value, right? Okay.
Yeah. So like for I don't know, for Cosmos ecosystem protocols, they want to use some flavor of Cosmos token. They're we have around 8 Bitcoin protocols.
Optimism, a bunch of these
and especially for protocols that are on the bigger side, right? Like they already have like hundreds of millions of their own tokens, or like billions of their own tokens. Why do they need restaking in Ethereum, right? But they still can benefit from restaking because they have multiple parts of the system.
Exactly where the economic value accrues, and so that varies from across different layers. So because you have all of this value, then you kind of get much more powerful shared security if you have the flexibility to use all of this. So Anurag, the interesting part about Avail, one of the many interesting parts about Avail is that you kind of thought of this ahead. And so Avail, the architecture is the underlying DA layer is a blockchain, right? So that's one thing. But then you also thought ahead about sort of integrating shared security into Avail. What was the thought process behind that? And before we go into how the mechanics of how the symbiotic integration works, what was the thought process behind sort of building this shared security layer fusion into Avail's architecture?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the thing is that like while we were at Polygon building out Polygon POS, so like we bootstrapped the network from scratch, right? Like I mean, as with any POS network, it's really hard to bootstrap a network, especially in the initial days. And then to kind of like continually keep the validator set humming, sustainable, profitable, so on and so forth, right? Like so that's a lot of effort in general. And now as we were kind of building this infra to enable this more roll-up centric universe, like if you are going to build a base layer for that, you need to ensure that it is rock solid in terms of security. And so, of course, your native token, your native Avail token, of course, offers the minimum level of security that is required. But like, why can't we make use of existing valuable tokens that have already gone through that journey of getting value, and then use that to bolster the shared security essentially. So I think that was like if we are going to be having thousands of chains on top of Avail, the Avail base layer needs to be rock solid, right? Like, and so that was really the thinking.
Yeah, so I have some fond memories of Ethereum price going from $1,600 to $88, $1,500 to, it wasn't so nice. and then obviously lots of Cosmos app chains going from 0 to infinity and infinity back to 0 and so on and so forth. So economic security is hard. So what I believe you're saying is that Avail's base layer is secure, but then on top of that you want to have sort of this stable mechanism for sustained economic security, where you can leverage the economic security of not just the Avail native token, or base layer, but also the value that accrues because of rollups and their tokens, and or sort of sovereign rollups and other types of, so it's almost apps and everything else that plugs into it, right? So that's fascinating, and I think some of the problems that people have been trying to solve for years across Cosmos, Polkadot, and now Ethereum. I think this is a fascinating way of kind of bringing all of those, the whole of history, together into something that can work. So mechanics, right? Let's just go into a bit more detail here. How does this integration between Symbiotic and Avail work? So you're building Fusion. Symbiotic has its own shared security layer. How does Avail leverage Symbiotic shared security? What's the technology here?
Yeah, so essentially this component that we're building for this is called Fusion. Fusion as in the fusion of different assets to provide this shared security. Uh, Now, how this works is that we have this staking module within the Avail base layer that right now supports the Avail native token, and we are modifying this to allow different other assets to essentially provide cryptoeconomic security and like assign staking weights at a lower level. We already have a bridge built from Avail to Ethereum. It's a ZK validity proof based bridge, and so
Mhm.
the workflow is that users will who are interested in using this mechanism will stake or restake assets on Symbiotics contracts on Ethereum, and because we have this bi-directional bridge to Ethereum, you will be able to relay these staking assets and messages to the staking module at Avail. And in general, if there is some misbehavior happening, we are able to kind of send back slashing messages back to Symbiotics contracts, and then the downstream slashing can happen, for example, and so on. So the mechanics, like, yeah, I mean the workflow is this whole bunch of things, but really for the user, it's pretty simple. Just take on a
Cool.
contract on Ethereum and like
So how
receive
long
rewards
did it
there.
take you guys to build all this? This sounds really fascinating, right? Because now you're kind of keeping track of the state across these two, very very well designed systems, and sort of saying, look, okay, we know exactly, how much value is securing the functionality or the stuff we are trying to secure. So Misha, what's the other side of this? As in, from your perspective, what does the integration look like, and how does it work?
Yeah, well, like the for us the flow is similar to another networks, but the interesting part of it is that Avail for its fusion is gonna it's gonna be using Symbiotic as a complementary tool. As like a lot of people are talking about bootstrapping, right? Like Avail doesn't need bootstrapping. It needs optimization, it needs stability, and it needs like to have a tooling that's gonna help make available their help for like any infinite configuration for future protocols, right? So this is the interesting part, because like they are gonna supplement and add additional security through us. And yeah, like this is the first part that is interesting. The second part is because they have their own DA solution. Kudos, by the way. They will be an important player in what we hope to achieve as a security protocol, the shared security part, where systems can align because they are protected by the same sets. Or so like the same sets of tokens, and can be like aligned within the token basket that they use, just to create additional layered utility base for each ecosystem.
So this is a pretty powerful idea, right? So let's say I'm building, let's say I integrate Arbitrum, with Avail. Now I have these, a few billion in Arbitrum token or optimism tokens that are Polygon tokens, which are actually quite valuable, and then now I can use some of that to sort of further secure the functionality. And if I'm launching, let's say, brand new sovereign rollups on this architecture, then in the beginning maybe it won't be that valuable, but over a period of time it could become really valuable. And now I have this. Now I'm not just securing my functionality, I also kind of get value from securing the overall stack. So because now I'm providing a value added service or even economic security to everyone else that is building on top of this really fascinating architecture. So that's a very powerful incentive, right, for builders, and that's also a very powerful incentive for users for some of these apps. So am I going to get okay? You don't have to tell me, and you can be as careful as you want while answering this. Am I going to get airdrops? Because a lot of people are asking on this. You don't have to answer that. But
Of course, all of them. No, like incentives are nice and well. Like and like people are incentivized. I think like it's a really important part of it.
Yeah.
The UX improvement is going to be really powerful as well. Like just imagine, okay, like just imagine I can give you you have really innovative idea for a space. Your rollup or like any other network or Oracle network or interop or fast finality or anything like that, it has characteristics that we think are gonna like change the surface of our
Yeah.
and like the landscape of our industry. And like I can give you like a $1 million in incentives right now, or I can shorten your go-to-market by like 6 to 16 months and make it safe. Like what would you choose as a builder, right? Like you'll never. Incentives are like they're a really important part and they're gonna do a lot, but I think the straight up UX jump and security jump and the traction when you can like immediately start testing things with billions of dollars that know from the start that like your system is safe because it uses this powerful stack.
That's exactly why people build on Ethereum as well, right? Because it's kind of or now on Bitcoin also, because it's a really secure base layer. But now other architectures are also, other blockchains are also starting to really grow, and because there is just so much demand in the long term, right? And we have seen that we go from, I think when we started, maybe 100 million, 200 million total market cap to now almost 2.4 trillion market cap. So this thing is sort of scaling on a slow to medium fast parabola with a lot of volatility. So there's just going to be a lot more coming through. Now, so we're building this discussion layer by layer, right? So we started with different components and we went to the integration. Now, what services, Misha, are getting built today on the Symbiotic stack, and then on Symbiotic, and then what sort of services do you see coming through in the next few months on Symbiotic that, let's say, builders building on top of Avail can take advantage of? What's there today? What's coming?
Yeah, like we almost like have everything at the moment. Every primitive, yeah, like we have around like 40 networks in a pipeline. We've been busy the last several months. Yeah, like we have like fast finality services, we have threshold networks, we have inference networks for AI, we have rollups, bridges, oracles, almost everything. We have, like the goal is to be like the protocol is designed in a way to be really flexible and modular, similar to Avail, and to accommodate as much use cases as possible without like making founders rework their protocol to accommodate us.
Yeah, amazing. So Web2 guys love to talk about Firebase, and Web2 guys love to talk about the AWS and a bunch of services. Like AI guys talk about Bedrock and so on. So this is a really interesting way to sort of build these services layer by layer and then create composability, right? In crypto, we love to talk about composability, but that's more, we think, in terms of application composability. But I think what you're saying here is even more fascinating, because you're saying, look, there are all these services, and then you have this modular stack, the DA layer, and the proof verification and a bunch of other things, and you sort of combine all of these, and then now you say, okay, pick and choose. You can even probably at some point have this, like this WYSIWYG type of interface I used to have when I was a developer. It's been like a century ago. And then you really, create very interesting applications that we hadn't thought about before. So Anurag, if I'm a builder and I want to build with Avail, right? Where do I go today and say, how do I take advantage of this powerful partnership? Where do I start?
Yeah. Before answering that question, I also wanted to kind of just put in, like one more point regarding the, like how to think about Fusion really as a toolkit along with Symbiotic, right? Like, I mean, what this also collaboration also allows is really, like, if you look at like something like when you ask a question about assets other than ETH, right? Like something like let's say an ARB or an OP, or like a Polygon, for example, or a zkSync, for example, right? Like, so it's all additional utility for these tokens, really, right? Like, I mean, just think about like someone like an ARB can say that, like, okay, like we can work with them together, for example, and say, okay, let's put ARB tokens to use in Fusion, for example, and you'll get like, let's say, ARB rewards in addition to Avail rewards, for example, and so on. And especially for new rollups, it's particularly interesting in the sense that initially it might start out as small, but like you mentioned, right? Like, I mean, how can we get all of these chains and infrastructure on top look like one stack, right? Like, and so one way is to kind of ensure that incentives are aligned across the stack, right? Like, so I think that certainly is a very powerful way of looking at this.
That's also the hardest thing, right? But then I mean, even with Ethereum, right, there is this continuous discussion, especially on Twitter, about alignment across Unichain and Ethereum, and so because a bunch of things we hadn't thought about when Ethereum started, right? When Ethereum started, it was essentially just one monolithic blockchain. So some of the innovations have come from other ecosystems, right? Polkadot. So there's a bunch of things I think other people have built. And now Ethereum, the power of Ethereum is, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of engineering, there's a lot of distribution, right? So the users are on Ethereum. So that creates this opportunity to leverage all of that, the ecosystem, the builders, the community, and all of those wonderful things about Ethereum. So, and sort of Avail coming into that, as sort of a really powerful asset, and Symbiotic coming into that as a really valuable set of tools is pretty fascinating, right? So now, where does this go from here? As in, what's the next step in this partnership? So now I have, I'm going to have a bunch of services I can use. I have a go-to DLR, right? So which is kind of cutting edge, which has its own powerful consensus, high levels of decentralization. It has a very interesting proof verification layer incoming. It's got a shared security layer, and these things work very nicely together, right? So now, what's the next step? As in, what are you guys gonna build together from here?
Now we build the system. Yeah, like this is the fun part starts. Yeah, like we'll start with the fusion. Then we walk from there, to hopefully deeper integration. But like the useful part starts from, like, it starts immediately almost for users, for actual networks, for builders. I yeah, like we just need to deliver now on the promises that we made, and we move further. Like, we're pretty confident because like Avail teams are good builders as well. Like, for a Symbiotic side, we are planning to launch mainnet pretty soon. So yeah,
That's
times.
Alpha Leak, Misha. That's
Hmm?
Alpha Leak. That's Alpha Leak on this show. It's amazing.
No, like it's not actual like alpha leak. We've been like, because the protocol is immutable and it starts immutable. We've been through audits for the last like 3 months nonstop, like now ever evolving. So like our code, we had code freeze for like around 3 months, yeah, from June. So yeah, we've been ready.
Yeah, that's so one thing I really like about both Avail and Symbiotic is that you guys are like hard-boiled shippers, right? So just heads down, engineering first, product first, cultures. So there is like this natural. I work know a lot of different teams in the Ethereum ecosystem and outside also. So I think that this is really cool that you guys kind of put your heads down and just build, right? So that's fascinating, and now just so DevCon is coming, right? So we're all really excited about finally DevCon in a really nice place, right? And uh, as opposed to, I mean, it's been nice places before, like Cancun, but it's in a nice place.
Safe place.
Yeah. So what are you guys doing at DevCon? I mean, what can the Ethereum community or blockchain? There's a bunch of other people coming to I know people from Solana, Aptos, Sui, whatever, who are coming to DevCon. It's become this global mecca of of builders across different ecosystems. So what are you guys doing together there, and what should we be really excited about?
Yeah, I think of course we'll be spreading the gospel about what is possible with this collaboration. For sure, we are kind of working together a couple of events. Especially at the Symbiotic Zone at the Shaking Summit for sure, but also at a few other events as well. And certainly we'll be talking about what you can build with this, right? Like, I mean, essentially, just to take that topical tweet from Andre, for example, right? Like, so right now the perception is that like spinning up this infra, like a blockchain or a roll up, for example. I mean, as per the quote, like it requires 14 to 15 million, right? Like, I mean, so really, like the end goal of all this building and this collaboration is how can we reduce this cost to as low as possible, so that how can we get the app developer to cook, right? Like that's really
I love
the
that
thing,
word.
right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So remember, it used to be when I was young. I don't know when that was, but it used to be really easy to. It used to be really expensive to build a tech company. I mean, you needed a lot of money, and you needed to hire a bunch of developers and start to build everything from scratch, more or less, on top of a bare bones stack. And so I think Andre is not wrong, right? What he's saying is that, and he often comes to Dubai, so we can go argue with him. But what he's saying is that yes, today it's very very expensive to launch your own app chain, right? But I think that cost really came down with cloud, right? I mean, there was data synapse and there was Cobra before that, and then this whole thing came about. So there's a history. I love tech history, and now it's become really really easy, right, to spin up a startup and shut it down. And part of the power of blockchain is that on Ethereum it became really easy to build your smart contracts or a DeFi protocol, and sometimes five guys in a garage. Andre was, two guys in a garage, and they would launch these really powerful DeFi protocols because everything was part of the Ethereum as a service. So now, I think this kind of starts to close the gap on services that developers expect but don't have today, and it's very expensive, like bridges, indexers, insurance. I think so a whole bunch of these things, Misha, you mentioned as well, that application developers cannot assume, and they have to kind of start from scratch. So Fuel launched today. So it's a big day in modular, right? I think you guys, and then Fuel. So Alt VM season has started. I'm really excited about it. So the different types of execution environments all building on top of Avail and Symbiotic would be amazing. Because now people can invent things that they couldn't before. So this is a really powerful way of thinking about it, and it's kind of mind opening for me, right, to kind of talk to you guys and understand what's really going on. So where should now more concretely, where should builders go? I mean, is there a website, Twitter? Where do we go to get started with this combination?
yeah. So for now, I mean, like we have blogs on your respective websites, availproject.org and Symbiotic's website in general. But we are kind of, we will be soon putting out docs for the testnet that we will launch pretty soon for Fusion in general. And so please stay tuned for more updates on Avail social channels.
Amazing. And Misha, where do we go to learn more about Symbiotic and how we sort of leverage this partnership as well?
Like for network builders that are going to be using Avail, like up to Avail side as well. We don't expect, like, this is the whole point. We don't expect people to have to shift gears, right? If they wanted to build on using Avail, right, and now like they can benefit from using Symbiotic as well.
Right.
They don't need to shift gears for that. Like just go to our website. Like we have interfaces available like to you. Go on testnet. We're gonna launch testnet soon, and you can deploy and try it for yourself. So I think it's gonna be really seamless.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So yeah, like we'll prepare more and more documentation for builders and explainers and demonstrators. So like this should be pretty straightforward.
I love what you guys said about unified innovation, right? So I think because the power of the cloud was innovation, right? People were able to invent things that we hadn't thought of. And now with this combination and other things you're going to build in the future, hopefully application developers can build things that are really valuable and useful and fun, right? So I'm really excited. Thank you so much for making this happen together, guys. You guys are epic, phenomenal builders, and it's really amazing to host you today. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And to our audience also, any questions, please reach out to Anurag or Misha. There's an Avail community chat, there's a Discord, the same thing about Symbiotic. These guys are both very accessible. So yeah, please reach out and get excited, go to the websites, learn about it, and let's build. It's gonna be fun. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah,
Yep.
happy to be here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.